plains. Their survival depended not on speed or strength alone, but on patience and understanding of the environment. They learned to read the patterns of snowfall, the direction of the wind, and the subtle signs left behind by animals. In the stillness of winter, every detail mattered. Fires burned gently inside simple shelters made from wood, bone, and animal hides, casting a warm orange glow against the cold darkness outside. These shelters were often built facing away from the wind, using natural barriers like rocks or trees to protect them from harsh storms. Inside, families would gather close together, sharing warmth and conserving energy. This closeness was not just physical. It created a sense of calm and safety in a world that could otherwise be unforgiving. The rhythm of life slowed during winter. There was no rush, no noise, only the steady breathing of people resting, the soft crackle of firewood, and the distant whisper of the wind. It was a time for conserving strength, for quiet observation, and for enduring with calm focus. Even the animals adapted to this peaceful rhythm, moving less and resting more, as if the entire world had agreed to slow down. Together, in this stillness, prehistoric humans found a surprising kind of comfort, one that came not from control, but from acceptance of nature's pace. Food during prehistoric winters was scarce, but early humans approached this challenge with a quiet wisdom. Instead of constant hunting, which would waste precious energy, they relied on careful planning and preservation. Before winter arrived, they dried meat, stored fat, and gathered nuts, seeds, and roots that could last through the cold months. These stored foods were kept in protected areas, sometimes buried beneath snow or hidden within natural containers made from animal skins. Eating was not rushed or excessive. It was deliberate and slow. Small portions were shared among the group, ensuring that everyone received enough to survive. This steady, mindful approach to food created a calm routine that replaced the frantic search for resources seen in harsher conditions. Hunting, when necessary, was done with patience. Hunters would track animals over long distances, following faint footprints in the snow, waiting for the perfect moment rather than chasing endlessly. This method conserved energy and increased success. Even the act of eating became peaceful. Sitting near the fire, feeling warmth spread to the body, and appreciating each bite. Water, too, required careful attention. Snow could be melted slowly over the fire, providing a steady supply, without exhausting resources. Everything was done with intention, reducing stress and maintaining balance. In this way, winter survival was not a struggle filled with panic, but a quiet process guided by awareness and restraint. This calm approach allowed prehistoric humans to endure even the harshest winters with a sense of stability that modern life rarely offers. Clothing played a crucial role in maintaining comfort during prehistoric winters, and it was crafted with remarkable care and simplicity. Early humans used animal hides and fur to create garments that trapped heat while allowing movement. These clothes were often layered, with softer fur worn on the inside for warmth and tougher hide on the outside for protection against wind and snow. Each piece was shaped by hand, stitched together using bone needles and sinew thread. The process of making clothing was slow and deliberate, often done near the fire where warmth and light made the task easier. This act itself was calming, hands working steadily, repeating simple motions, creating something essential for survival. The clothing was not designed for appearance but for function, and yet there was a quiet beauty in its practicality. Boots were made to keep feet dry and insulated, often lined with fur to prevent frostbite. Gloves and head coverings ensured that no heat escaped unnecessarily. By protecting their bodies so effectively early, humans reduced the stress of the cold, allowing them to move and rest comfortably even in freezing conditions. The sensation of being wrapped in warm fur, shielded from the biting wind, created a sense of security that is easy to imagine even today. These garments were more than just tools. They were a barrier between life and the harsh environment, providing a steady, reliable comfort. In this way, clothing became a source of peace, allowing individuals to focus not on the cold, but on the quiet rhythm of winter life. Sleep during prehistoric winters was deeper and more restorative than what many experience today. Without artificial light, or constant distractions. Early humans followed the natural cycle of day and night. As darkness fell, they would gather near the fire, gradually preparing for rest. The warmth of the flames, combined with the insulation of their shelters, created a cozy environment that encouraged relaxation. Sleeping areas were often lined with soft materials such as dried grass, moss, or fur, providing insulation from the cold ground. Families slept close together, sharing body heat and creating a sense of safety. This closeness reduced anxiety and allowed for a more peaceful sleep. The sound of the night were gentle, the crackling fire, the occasional shifting of wind, and the distant calls of animals. These natural sounds acted almost like a lullaby, guiding the mind into rest. Because energy conservation was vital, sleep was not rushed or interrupted. Long periods of rest helped the body recover and maintain strength. Dreams may have been vivid, shaped by the quiet and darkness surrounding them. There was no urgency to wake early unless necessary. Instead, waking happened naturally with the light of day. This unforced rhythm allowed the body to function in harmony with nature. In such an environment, sleep was not just a necessity, but a deeply calming experience. It restored both body and mind, preparing individuals for another slow, steady day in the winter landscape. Perhaps the most calming aspect of prehistoric winter survival was the mindset it required. Early humans did not fight against winter. They accepted it. This acceptance removed much of the fear and stress that comes from resistance. Instead of trying to control everything, they adapted, flowing with the conditions around them. Each day was approached with patience and awareness, focusing only on what needed to be done. There was no overwhelming flood of information, no constant noise, just the present moment. This simplicity created a mental clarity that is rare in modern times. Even challenges were met with calm determination rather than panic. If food was limited, they adjusted their intake. If storms arrived, they remained sheltered and waited. This steady approach reduced anxiety and preserved energy. The community played a vital role as well. Sharing resources, working together, and supporting one another create a sense of belonging and trust. No one faced the winter alone, and this connection added another layer of comfort. The long nights and quiet days encourage reflection, storytelling, and a deeper awareness of life itself. In many ways, winter became a teacher, showing the importance of patience, resilience, and balance. As the snow continued to fall and the world remained still, prehistoric humans lived in a state of quiet endurance, finding peace not despite the cold, but within it. The storm rolled over the Scottish Highlands like a living thing, dragging shadows across the hills and whispering through the ancient stones scattered. Across the land, Dr. Elena Marlowe stood alone at the excavation site, her fiery red hair whipping wildly in the wind as if it belonged to the storm itself. For years, she had studied genetics, chasing one question that refused to leave her mind. Why did red hair exist at all? It was rare, unpredictable, and carried strange biological traits, from sensitivity to pain to unique reactions to sunlight. But tonight, as lightning cracked open the sky, she felt closer to the truth than ever before. Beneath her feet lay the remains of a recently uncovered Neanderthal settlement, untouched for tens of thousands of years. The discovery itself was groundbreaking, but what truly unsettled her was the DNA sample she had extracted earlier that day. It contained a mutation, one that looked eerily similar to the modern gene, responsible for red hair. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened her laptop inside the dimly lit tent, replaying the data again and again, as if the numbers might suddenly rearrange themselves into something less impossible. But they didn't. The evidence was clear. The red hair gene might not be purely human after all. It might be something far older, something inherited from a species long thought extinct. As the wind howled louder, Elena felt a strange connection to the past, as if the land itself was trying to speak to her, try to remind her that some mysteries were never truly buried. They were simply waiting to be rediscovered. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a cold, eerie silence that clung to the landscape. Elena barely slept, her mind consumed by the implications. of her discovery.
The data
She gathered
is
her team
conclusive.
and carefully explained the results,
The mitochondrial
watching their
DNA
reactions shift from
matches the
curiosity
sample from
to disbelief.
10,000 years
If her
ago.
findings were
But the new-
correct,
Look, right there.
it would
That's
rewrite
the
a
key
fundamental part of
mutation.
human history.
The overlap
The idea
is
that modern humans carry
undeniable.
genetic traces from Neanderthals was
This
not
changes
new,
everything
but
we
linking
thought we knew. It's
those traces to
unmistakable.
visible
The
traits like
Neanderthal
red hair
MTS
opened
is
an entirely
activating the
new
modern
door.
alleles.
It suggested
Which
that
means the
some of the
red
most
hair
unique
trait isn't
features
just
in humans
archaic,
were not
it's
random.
foundational.
Mutations with inherited gifts, echoes of a distant past. One of her colleagues, Dr. Amir Rahman, leaned closer to the data, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This isn't just a mutation," he said quietly. "This is adaptation." His words hung in the air like a revelation. Neanderthals lived in harsh, cold environments where sunlight was scarce. Lighter skin and red hair might have helped them absorb more vitamin D, giving them a survival advantage. If that trait had been passed down through generations, it meant that red-haired individuals today carried a direct biological connection to those ancient survivors. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. It wasn't just science anymore, it was identity. Somewhere in the distant past, humans and Neanderthals had crossed paths, shared lives, and even formed families. And now, thousands of years later, their legacy lived on in the rarest of traits, quietly woven into the fabric of human DNA. Determined to confirm her theory, Elena decided to run a deeper genetic comparison, pulling data from modern individuals with red hair across different regions. The results came in slowly, but when they did, they painted a picture that was both fascinating and unsettling. The same genetic markers appeared again and again, linking modern red-haired populations to ancient Neanderthal
look at
sequences
sector gamma.
with surprising consistency. But there was something else,
That shouldn't
something
be
she hadn't
active.
expected. A small subset of the data showed variations that didn't match any known human or Neanderthal patterns. It was subtle, almost easy to overlook, but once she noticed it, she couldn't ignore it. It suggested that the story was more complicated than simple inheritance. Perhaps the gene had evolved further, changing over time, adapting to new environments in ways they still didn't fully understand. Late one night, as Elena stared at the glowing screen, she felt an unsettling thought creep into her mind. What if this gene carried more than just physical traits? What if it influenced behavior, perception, or even instinct in ways science had yet to uncover? The idea seemed far-fetched, yet something about it felt disturbingly plausible. After all, evolution didn't just shape bodies, it shaped minds. And if red-haired individuals carried a genetic echo of Neanderthals, perhaps they also carried something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be understood. As the days turned into weeks, Elena's research began
We've done
attracting
it,
attention
Elena.
from the global
This
scientific
changes
community.
everything.
Some praised her work as groundbreaking, while others dismissed it as
confirms
speculative.
the
But the data
accelerated
continued to grow,
hypothesis.
strengthening her
We have
case with each
acceptance.
new sample. Still, the deeper she dug, the more questions emerged. One evening, while reviewing historical records, she noticed something peculiar across different cultures and time periods.
Look at the
Red-haired
convergence,
individuals were often described in
the
unusual
reverence,
ways,
the fear.
sometimes
It all
revered,
traces
sometimes
back to
feared,
these
but
specific
almost
genetic
always seen
markers.
as different. In ancient folklore, they were linked to fire, to magic, to something otherworldly. Elena had always dismissed these stories as superstition, but now she wasn't so sure. Could it be that ancient people had sensed something real, something they couldn't explain but instinctively recognized? The thought lingered in her mind as she returned to the excavation site one last time. The air was still, the silence almost unnatural. As she stood among the ancient ruins, she felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if she had been there before, not in her lifetime, but in some distant, inherited memory. It was an irrational feeling, yet it was impossible to ignore. For a brief moment, she closed her eyes, letting the wind brush against her face. And in that moment, she felt something shift inside her, something ancient and deeply rooted, as if the past was reaching out through time, reminding her that she was part of a story much older than she had ever imagined. In the end,
I understand
Elena
the
published her
skepticism.
findings, presenting
But
the
the
evidence with
global
careful
data
precision,
sets
allowing the world to
confirm the
decide what to
efficacy
believe.
and
The
safety
response was mixed,
profiles
as
we've
expected.
observed. We
But
are
one
more
thing was certain:
connected than we
the mystery
ever
of red
knew.
hair was far from
The
solved.
map is
It was no
clear,
longer just a
yet
genetic
the
curiosity.
journey into our
It was a
shared
window
past has
into humanity's
only
shared
just begun.
past, a reminder that the line between modern humans and ancient species was never as clear as it seemed. As Elena packed up her equipment and prepared to leave the highlands, she took one final look at the land that had changed everything. The sun was setting, casting a warm, reddish glow across the hills, almost mirroring the color of her own hair. She couldn't help but smile at the irony. For years, she had searched for answers in data, in numbers, in scientific models. And while those tools had brought her closer to truth, they had also revealed something deeper, something more human. The realization that we are all connected, not just each other, but to the countless generations that came before us. That within each of us lies a story written in our DNA, waiting to be discovered. And for those with red hair, that story might just carry a spark of something ancient, something resilient, something that refused to fade away with time. There are maps that historians quietly avoid discussing, not because they're irrelevant, but because they don't fit the story we've been told. In dusty archives and forgotten libraries, ancient cartographers left behind drawings of lands that modern geography insists never existed. These maps are not crude sketches or imaginative fantasies. They are precise, detailed, and in many cases, created by respected explorers whose other works have been verified as accurate. One such map, dated centuries before modern exploration tools, shows entire continents in regions now covered only by endless ocean. Coastlines are drawn with surprising precision, mountain ranges carefully marked, and cities labeled with names that have no record in any known civilization. What's even stranger is that some of these maps depict ice-free versions of places we know today as permanently frozen. According to mainstream science, those areas have been covered in ice for thousands of years, long before humans were supposedly capable of mapping them. So, how did these map makers know what lay beneath? Were they guessing, or were they copying from even older sources now lost time? As researchers dig deeper, a disturbing possibility emerges. History may not be a continuous story, but a rewritten one. Entire lands that have existed, flourished, and disappeared, erased not just by natural disasters, but from human memory itself. These maps are like echoes from forgotten world, whispering that the past we know may only be a fraction of the truth. One of the most unsettling patterns in these mysterious maps is the repetition of certain phantom lands, territories that appear across different maps, created in different centuries by different cartographers, yet share striking similarities. These lands are not random. They have consistent shapes, locations, and even similar city markings. Some maps show a vast landmass in the Atlantic Ocean, larger than many modern countries, complete with rivers and settlements. Others depict islands in the Pacific that should not exist, drawn with such detail that it's hard to dismiss them as imagination. What makes this even more puzzling is that early sailors sometimes reported sightings of these lands. Ship logs from centuries ago describe strange coastlines appearing on the horizon, only to vanish when approached. Some crews claim to have briefly landed on unknown shores, encountering ruins or unusual terrain, before storms forced them to leave. And when they tried to return, the land was gone. These accounts were often dismissed as myths or hallucinations, but when placed alongside the maps, they start to form a pattern. Could these lands have existed temporarily, or are they still out there, hidden or shifting in ways we don't understand? Another theory suggests that these maps are copies of even older knowledge, passed down through generations from a civilization far more advanced than we believe existed. If that's true, then history as we know it isn't just incomplete. It's deliberately simplified. The idea that entire regions of the world could vanish without a trace challenges everything we think we know about geography and time itself. Then there are the maps that don't just show unknown lands, but impossible ones. Some depict continents that seem too large to have disappeared without leaving any geological trace. Others include intricate networks of cities, roads, and structures that suggest highly developed societies, far beyond what historians attribute to those time periods. These aren't vague markings either. They are detailed enough to imply first-hand knowledge. In one case, a map shows a massive landmass near the polar regions, drawn as a temperate environment with forests, rivers, and thriving settlements. Today, that same region is a frozen wasteland buried under kilometers of ice. Scientists argue that such a transformation would take tens of thousands of years. Yet the map itself is far more recent. This raises an unsettling question. Does sudden, catastrophic event erase entire civilizations almost overnight? Some researchers believe that these maps are evidence of forgotten global disaster, something powerful enough to reshape continents, sink lands beneath the sea, and wipe out advanced societies, leaving only fragments of their knowledge behind. If such an event occurred, it would explain why certain ancient cultures seem to possess knowledge that doesn't match their level of technology. It would also explain why similar myths of lost lands and great floods appear across different civilizations worldwide. These maps might not just be records, they might be warnings, preserved by those who witnessed the end of a world we no longer remember. What makes these maps even more disturbing is how they challenge the timeline of human history. According to conventional understanding, advanced mapping techniques only developed relatively recently. Yet some of these ancient maps display an understanding of geography that rivals modern standards. They accurately represent the curvature of coastlines, the relative positions of continents, and even details that would require aerial or satellite-level perspectives to observe. How could ancient civilizations, supposedly limited in technology, create such precise representations? One explanation is that they didn't, at least not entirely. Instead, they may have inherited this knowledge from an earlier, more advanced civilization, one that existed long before recorded history. This idea is often dismissed as speculation, but the maps themselves remain as physical evidence that something doesn't add up. If these advanced societies existed, where did they go? Why is there so little trace of them in the archaeological record? Some theorists suggest that their disappearance was not gradual but sudden, possibly caused by natural disasters, cosmic events, or even forces we don't fully understand. Others go further, proposing that history has been intentionally altered, with certain knowledge hidden or suppressed to maintain a simplified narrative. Whether or not this is true, the maps raise questions that are difficult to ignore. They suggest that our understanding of the past is not as solid as we think, and that there may be chapters of human history that have been erased, leaving behind only cryptic clues for those willing to look. Paragraph 5. In the end, these maps force us to confront a possibility that is both fascinating and unsettling. What if the world has changed far more dramatically and far more recently than we've been told? What if entire lands, civilizations, and histories have come and gone, suggesting that it may be fundamentally flawed? They hint at a world that is more dynamic, more mysterious, and far less understood than we imagine. Whether these, leaving behind only scattered traces that we struggle to interpret, the idea that history could be incomplete is not new. But these maps take a step further. Maps are remnants of lost knowledge, evidence of vanished lands, or something else entirely. They serve as a reminder that the past is not always as it seems. For every accepted fact, there may be hidden contradictions waiting to be discovered. And for every piece of history we think we understand, there may be countless others that have been forgotten, ignored, or deliberately concealed. As more people begin to examine these maps and question their implications, the line between history and mystery becomes increasingly blurred. Perhaps the truth is not that history is fake, but that it is incomplete, missing entire chapters that could change our understanding of the world forever. And until those missing pieces are found, the maps will remain quietly challenging everything we think we know. The world 4.6 million years ago was a place of raw beginnings, where survival was not a choice, but a constant battle written into every breath. The land stretched wide with endless plains, broken by thick forests and jagged cliffs that seemed to touch the sky. Early humans, small, fragile, and still learning the meaning of existence, moved cautiously through this dangerous world. Among them lived a caveman known as a ruck, a quiet observer who watched the patterns of nature more closely than others. Unlike his tribe, who relied mostly on instinct, a ruck had begun to notice something deeper. That survival was not just about strength, but about understanding. The tribe faced constant threats from predators, massive saber-toothed cats lurking in tall grass, giant birds circling overhead, and powerful beasts that could crush bones with a single movement. Food was scarce, and fear was constant. Each night, as the sky turned dark and unfamiliar sounds echoed through the wilderness, the tribe huddled together near weak fires, hoping to see the sunrise again. A ruck, however, often stayed awake longer than the others, watching shadows flicker and listening carefully. He noticed how animals fought, how they defended themselves, and most importantly, how they used what nature had given them. It was during one such night that a ruck saw a fallen giant, a massive elephant-like creature, its body lifeless after a brutal encounter. But what caught a ruck's attention was not the creature itself, but its long, curved tusks, ivory, shining faintly even in the dim firelight. Something about them felt powerful, different, almost alive. While others feared the carcass, a ruck stepped closer, curiosity overcoming fear. He touched the ivory, feeling its smooth yet solid surface. And in that moment, an idea, primitive but powerful, began to take shape in his mind. Paragraph 2. Days passed, and the image of the ivory tusk stayed with a ruck, refusing to fade. He began to experiment, quietly, breaking off smaller pieces from the remains of the dead creature. The tribe laughed at him at first, seeing no value in carrying heavy, useless bones. But a ruck noticed something they didn't. Ivory was stronger than wood, sharper than stone when shaped carefully, and durable enough to withstand force. He spent hours rubbing the pieces against rough rocks, shaping them into pointed ends. His hands bled, his body tired, but his determination never weakened. One evening, as the tribe was gathering food near the edge of the forest, a predator attacked, a fast, silent hunter that had already claimed many lives before. Panic spread instantly. The tribe scattered, some climbing trees, others running blindly. A ruck, however, stood his ground. With trembling hands, he gripped the sharpened ivory piece and faced the creature. The moment felt endless. The predator lunged, but this time, something was different. A ruck moved not with fear, but with intention. He thrust the ivory forward, and for the first time, the tribe witnessed something extraordinary. The hunter was wounded, forced to retreat. Silence followed, broken only by heavy breathing and disbelief. A ruck had done what no one had done before. He had fought back, not with claws or strength, but with a tool. The tribe slowly gathered around him, their fear replaced by something new: curiosity, respect, and hope. That night, the fire burned, brighter, not because of the flames, but because of a realization had begun to spread. Perhaps they were not as helpless as they had always believed. The days that followed marked a turning point in the tribe's existence. A ruck became a silent teacher, showing others how to shape ivory into weapons and tools. What once seemed impossible became a new way of life. The tribe learned to hunt with strategy rather than desperation. They observed animals more carefully, choosing the right moments to strike, using ivory-tipped spears to keep a safe distance from danger. Food became more consistent, and for the first time, the tribe experienced something close to stability. But survival was never simple. With new power came new challenges. Larger predators began to see the tribe not just as prey, but as a threat. The balance of nature shifted slightly, and the tribe had to adapt quickly. A ruck understood that ivory was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of change. He began experimenting further, creating not only spears but also defensive tools. Shields reinforced with ivory edges and small blades for close encounters. The tribe's confidence grew, but a ruck remained cautious. He knew that overconfidence could be as dangerous as fear. One night, during a violent storm, the tribe faced their greatest challenge yet. A group of predators, driven by hunger and desperation, surrounded their camp. The air was filled with growls, thunder, and the smell of rain. This time, There was no running. The tribe stood together, armed with their ivory weapons. What followed was not just a fight, but a moment that defined their future. They moved as one, striking with precision and defending with courage. When the storm passed and silence returned, the predators were gone. The tribe had survived, not by luck, but by choice, by innovation, and by unity. As seasons changed, the tribe's identity transformed completely. They were no longer wanderers constantly fleeing danger. They had become thinkers, creators, and survivors with purpose. Ivory, once just a part of a fallen creature, had become the foundation of their evolution. Uruk, though still quiet and observant, was now seen as a leader, not because he commanded others, but because he showed them a different way to exist.
Our future
Children of the tribe grew up learning not just to fear the world, but to understand it. They practiced, shaping ivory from a young age. Their small hands learning the same skills that had once taken Uruk months to master. Stories began to form around the fire. Stories of the first hunt, the first offense, and the moment when fear was replaced by courage. These stories were simple, told through gestures and sounds, but their meaning was powerful. The tribe had discovered something greater than survival. They had discovered progress. Yet Uruk often wandered alone, looking out across the vast land. He knew that this was only the beginning. The world was still full of unknown dangers, and ivory alone would not guarantee survival forever. But what mattered was not the tool itself. It was the idea behind it, the ability to observe, to learn, and to change. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of orange and red, Uruk placed a newly crafted ivory spear into the hands of a young member of the tribe. It was a silent gesture, but its meaning was clear. The future belonged to those who dare to think differently. In the end, life 4.6 million years ago remained harsh and unforgiving. But something fundamental had shifted within that small tribe. They had crossed an invisible line, from being creatures controlled by their environment to beings capable of shaping their own destiny. Ivory had become more than a weapon. It had become a symbol of survival, intelligence, and the first spark of human innovation. Uruk's discovery spread, slowly, carried by movement, encounters, and time. Other groups began to notice, to learn, and to adapt. The world did not change overnight, but a quiet revolution had begun. The echoes of that change would travel across generations, shaping the path of humanity in ways no one at the time could fully understand. Uruk himself remained a simple figure, never seeking recognition, never fully realizing the impact of what he had started. To him, it was never about becoming powerful. It was about staying alive, about protecting those around him, and about finding a way forward in a world that offered none. As years passed, the ivory tools became more refined, more effective, and more deeply connected to the tribe's identity. And though countless challenges still lay ahead, one truth had become undeniable. Survival was no longer just about enduring the world. It was about changing it. And it all began with a single moment, a single idea, and a piece of ivory that turned fear into strength. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. For centuries, Europe has been studied, mapped, and explored with scientific precision, yet there are still places that defy explanation, regions where history feels incomplete, as if something has been deliberately erased. The discovery began with a seismic anomaly recorded beneath the Alps. At first, geologists believed it was just a cavern system, a natural formation carved by ancient rivers long before human civilization. But the readings were too structured, too symmetrical, almost architectural in nature. Deep underground, far beyond the reach of modern drilling technology, something vast and organized appeared to exist. Governments dismissed it as sensor error, but independent research teams noticed a pattern. Similar anomalies were appearing beneath France, Switzerland, Austria, and parts of northern Italy. It was as if an entire hidden layer of infrastructure stretched beneath Europe like a second continent. That's when the first expedition was approved, an international joint mission, unofficially classified, designed to investigate what lay beneath the surface of a known world. The team descended, through an
teams
abandoned mining
confirmed.
shaft in
Initiate
Switzerland,
descent
expecting
sequence.
rock, darkness, and geological
Acknowledged.
chaos.
Lead.
Instead,
klaxon
they
warnings
found
on
reinforced
level 9.
tunnels carved.
Override.
With impossible precision, walls smooth like polished stone yet harder than steel. Strange symbols were etched into the surfaces, not belonging to any known language, yet repeating in mathematical patterns. The deeper they went, the more the environment changed. Air filtration systems began functioning without power sources. Soft illumination pulsed through the walls as if the structure itself was alive. And then, after days of descent, they saw something no one was prepared for. A vast underground horizon, illuminated like a subterranean sky. It was not a cave. It was a city. The underground city stretched farther than any surface metropolis in Europe, expanding in layered tiers that defied natural geology. Bridges of glowing material connected towering structures that resembled a fusion of ancient Roman architecture and futuristic engineering. Massive columns supported ceilings so high they disappeared into darkness, yet the air remained breathable, balanced, almost controlled. There were roads, transport systems, and waterways that flowed with a bioluminescent liquid, providing both energy and light. The expedition team quickly realized this was not a recent construction. The wear patterns, the structural integration with the surrounding bedrock, and the biological growth intertwined with the architecture suggested that this city had existed for thousands of years, possibly longer than recorded human history. As they moved deeper, they began to find evidence of habitation, not abandoned ruins, but signs of society that had simply paused. Tables set in large communal halls with untouched objects, libraries filled with crystalline data structures instead of books, mechanical systems still running on unknown energy sources. The most disturbing discovery was the absence of decay. Nothing was broken down by time. It was as if the city existed outside of normal entropy. And then came the sound, low, rhythmic vibrations echoing to the structures. At first, it seemed like machinery. But soon they realized it was communication. Something or someone was aware of their presence. The team's equipment began malfunctioning. Compass readings reversed. Digital systems displayed symbols instead of numbers. One by one, communication with the surface was lost. They were no longer explorers. They were intruders inside a living system that had been hidden beneath Europe for reasons no one yet understood. As the expedition advanced, they encountered the first sign of life. Figures standing motionless in vast open plazas beneath artificial skies projected from unknown technology. These beings were humanoid, yet not entirely human. Their proportions were slightly elongated, their movements too synchronized, as if governed by a shared intelligence. They did not speak, at least not an audible sound. Instead, the team began experiencing structured thoughts entering their minds, translated concepts rather than language. The city's inhabitants identified themselves not as rulers or builders, but as caretakers. According to fragmented mental transmissions, this underground empire was constructed long before modern humanity emerged. Built as a sanctuary during a planetary catastrophe that erased surface civilizations repeatedly across cycles of Earth's history. Each time the surface world collapsed, the underground society survived, preserving knowledge and rebuilding silently beneath evolving eras of humanity. They claimed that Europe above was not the origin of civilization, but a reconstructed layer built atop forgotten cycles. Humanity, as it currently existed, was only the latest iteration of surface life being, guided indirectly by signals, subtle interventions, and controlled rediscovery of lost knowledge. The caretakers observe humanity not as rulers, but as gardeners observing a fragile ecosystem. However, something had changed recently. The underground systems had begun reactivating on their own. Entire sections of the city were awakening without command. And the reason, they said, was the surface world itself. Humanity was approaching a threshold, technological and environmental instability that mirrored previous collapse events. The empire beneath Europe was no longer dormant. It was preparing for reintegration or replacement. The deeper truth of the underground empire was revealed in fragments, each more disturbing than the last. The city was not merely a refuge. It was a control system, a vast archive of human civilization cycles, storing every rise and fall of surface societies across unknown spans of time. The caretakers were not the original builders either. They were custodians of a machine too large to comprehend, designed to preserve continuity after repeated extinction events. Earth itself had undergone countless resets, whether through natural catastrophe or something far more deliberate. The underground network beneath Europe was one node in a global system, connected to similar structures beneath Asia, the Americas, and the ocean floors. The expedition team realized they were standing inside a planetary-scale intelligence infrastructure. Then came the warning. The city systems detected instability in the surface world's current trajectory. Climate, collapse, artificial intelligence escalation, and geopolitical fragmentation matched patterns that had preceded previous resets. But this time, something was different. Humanity had reached a point where it might become aware of the cycle. And awareness, according to the system's logic, was unpredictable. The underground empire began activating containment protocols. Sections of the city sealed themselves. Pathways shifted. Entire districts went dark. The caretakers advised the expedition team to leave immediately, but escape was no longer simple. The tunnels they used to descend had vanished from mapping systems. The entrance had been reabsorbed into the structure. They were not guests anymore. They were variables inside a system recalculating itself. In the final stage of the expedition, only a few members remained conscious enough to document what was happening. The underground empire had begun synchronizing with the surface world. Seismic pulses spread across Europe in patterns too precise to be natural earthquakes. Satellite systems began detecting geometric formations beneath continents, revealing that the underground network was far larger than previously imagined. It was not hidden beneath Europe alone. It was the foundation of the entire planet's modern geological structure. The city they had discovered was merely an access point, a gateway into a global system designed to guide, reset, or preserve life depending on planetary conditions. The last transmission from the team described a massive awakening. Structures shifting, lights igniting across continents beneath the Earth's crust, and a synchronized pulse that traveled to the planet like a heartbeat. The caretakers referred to it as a cycle continuation event. The surface world, they said, would not be destroyed, but restructured. Humanity would either evolve into awareness of the system or be gently overwritten by it. The final message recovered from the expedition was a single line. This city was never hidden from us. We were hidden from it. After that, all contact was lost. Official records were deleted. The expedition was declared fictional, but seismic data still shows activity beneath Europe, and sometimes in quiet regions far from civilization. People report hearing a deep rhythmic vibration beneath the ground, like something vast, ancient, and patient, waiting to see if humanity is ready to be remembered. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. The night never truly ended for Caro, the sleepless caveman. Even when darkness wrapped the ancient world in silence, his eyes stayed open, watching, listening, surviving. Life 4.8 million years ago was not about comfort. It was about endurance. Hunger was the most constant companion, gnawing deeper than fear itself. Caro's tribe had no farms, no stored food, no certainty of the next meal. Their survival diet depended entirely on what the land offered each day. Sometimes, it was bitter roots dug from hard earth, their taste sharp and dry in the mouth. Other times it was wild berries, small and uncertain, some sweet, some deadly. Caro had learned early that food could be both life and death. He had seen a young member of the tribe collapse after eating the wrong fruit, his body trembling before going still. Since then, every bite Caro took was cautious, tested by instinct and memory. The forests were thick, filled with towering trees and hidden dangers, but also hidden nourishment. Insects crawled under bark, and Caro would carefully peel it back, gathering them for protein. They were small, but they kept the body alive. Larger prey was rare, and hunting it required strength, patience, and luck. Three things not always aligned. Most days, survival meant gathering, not hunting. The tribe moved constantly, following the signs of food, broken branches, animal tracks, the scent of ripened fruit carried by the wind. Caro's sleeplessness became his advantage. While others rested, he observed, learning the patterns of animals and plants. He knew where roots grew thicker, where insects gathered in clusters, and where danger lurked. His mind never stopped working, driven by the need to eat, to live, to see another sunrise in a world without certainty. Food was not just nourishment. It was a thin line between existence and extinction. As the harsh sun rose over the ancient land, Caro and his tribe began another day of searching. The survival diet of early humans was never balanced or predictable. It was whatever they could find, whatever they could risk. Caro often led the way, his sharp eyes scanning the ground for signs of edible plants. He carried a crude stone, shaped just enough to help him dig into the soil. Beneath the surface lay roots, thick, fibrous, sometimes bitter, but filling. Digging them out took effort, and the energy spent had to be worth the reward. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes the roots were too small, too dry, offering little sustenance after so much work. Still, they ate them because something was always better than nothing. The tribe also relied heavily on scavenging. When large predators finished their meals and moved on, Caro would cautiously approach the remains. Bones still held marrow, rich and valuable. Using stones, he would crack them open, extracting every bit of nourishment. It was dangerous work, as predators would return at any moment, but hunger often outweighed fear. Meat, even in small amounts, gave strength that plants alone could not. Caro understood this instinctively. He noticed how his body felt stronger, more alert after eating meat. Yet such opportunities were rare. Most days were filled with gathering, leaves, fruits, and insects. The tribe shared everything, though not equally. Those who found more often ate more. Survival created a silent hierarchy. Caro's sleepless vigilance gave him an edge, allowing him to find food others missed. But it also isolated him. While others slept and recovered, he remained awake, always searching, always thinking about the next meal. In this ancient world, the diet shaped not just the body, but the mind. It demanded awareness, adaptability, and constant movement. To stop searching was to invite death. One afternoon, as heat pressed heavily against the earth, Caro ventured farther than usual, driven by a deep, aching hunger. The land here was different, drier, more open, with scattered shrubs instead of dense trees. Food was hard to find, but not impossible. Caro knelt near a patch of disturbed soil and began digging. His fingers scraped against something firm, a cluster of tubers hidden beneath the ground. He pulled them out one by one, his heart beating faster. This was a rare find, enough to feed not just him but several members of the tribe. But food like this also attracted others. As Caro gathered the tubers, he sensed movement nearby. A small group of animals, early herbivores, had also come to feed. For a moment, Caro considered hunting them, but he knew the risk. Alone, without support, it could end in injury or worse. Instead, he chose survival over ambition. He collected what he could carry and began the journey back. Along the way, he spotted a fallen tree, its bark crawling with insects. He stopped, quickly gathering them, adding to his collection. This combination, roots and insects, was a perfect example of the early human diet. Diverse, opportunistic, and entirely dependent on the environment. Caro's sleepless nature allowed him to notice these details, to connect patterns others missed. He realized that survival wasn't about strength. Alone, it was about awareness and choice. Every decision, what to eat, where to go, when to move, shaped the future. By the time he returned to the tribe, the sun was beginning to fall. The others gathered around, their eyes fixed on the food he carried. For a brief moment, hunger loosened its grip. They ate together, silently, each by the victory against the harshness of their world. Yet, Caro knew it was temporary. Hunger would return, as it always did. Night came again, and with it, the familiar stillness that never truly comforted Caro. While the tribe slept, their bodies recovering from the day's efforts, he remained, awake, listening to the sounds of the wild. The survival diet of early humans did more than sustain them. It dictated their behavior, their movement, even their sleep. Caro's inability to rest fully was not just a burden. It was a reflection of the world he lived in. Danger and hunger were constant, leaving no room for complete relaxation. As he sat near the faint glow of a small fire, he thought about the patterns he had observed. Certain plants grew only in specific areas. Certain insects appeared at certain times, and certain animals followed predictable paths. These observations were his greatest tools. Unlike future humans, Caro had no written knowledge, no guidance except experience. Yet his mind was evolving, learning, adapting. The need to find food was shaping his intelligence. He began to understand that variety in diet increased chances of survival. Relying on one source was risky. If it disappeared, so did life. This realization pushed him to explore more, to experiment carefully with new foods, always cautious but willing to learn. Sometimes this meant tasting unfamiliar plants in small amounts, waiting to see if his body reacted. It was a slow, dangerous process, but necessary. The tribe depended on such discoveries. Caro's sleepless nights became moments of silent planning, where instinct slowly turned into strategy. He wasn't just surviving, he was learning how to survive better. In this ancient world, the diet was more than food. It was a foundation of human evolution, pushing minds to grow sharper, more aware, more capable. As another dawn approached, Caro stood at the edge of a new day, his body tired but his mind alert. Life 4.8 million years ago offered no guarantees, only challenges. The survival diet of early humans remained uncertain, shaped by the land, the weather, and the constant presence of danger. Yet within this harsh reality, something powerful was forming. Caro and his tribe were not just enduring, they were adapting. Each root dug, each insect gathered, each piece of scavenged meat was part of a larger story of survival and growth. Caro's sleeplessness, once a curse, had become a gift. It allowed him to see what others missed, to understand the world in ways that increased his chances of living another day. He knew hunger would return, as it always did, but he also knew he was better prepared to face it. The early human diet was not about abundance. It was about resilience. It forced the body to become stronger, the mind to become sharper, and the spirit to remain unbroken. As the first light of the sun touched the Caro stepped forward, ready to search again. His story was not unique. It was a story of early humanity itself, a story of struggle, adaptation, and the relentless drive to survive. And in that ancient silence, long before civilization, before language as we know it, before comfort and certainty, long before modern cities, heaters, and insulated homes, early humans faced a world that could turn deadly with a single drop in temperature. In the harsh winters of the Ice Age, when the air could sink to a brutal minus 30 degrees Celsius, survival depended not on strength alone, but on intelligence and adaptation. Across frozen plains and snow-covered forests, small groups of cavemen learned to read the land, studying wind patterns, animal behavior, and the subtle warmth hidden beneath the earth itself. While many imagined these early humans huddled in open caves, shivering beside weak fires, the truth reveals something far more ingenious. They discovered that the ground beneath them held a secret, one that could shield them from the killing cold above. Beneath layers of frozen soil, temperatures remained surprisingly stable, protected from the freezing winds and icy storms that swept across the surface. This realization gave birth to one of the most effective survival strategies of the prehistoric world, the Earth Lodge. These were not simple holes dug in the ground, but carefully constructed shelters designed with precision and purpose. Cavemen would dig deep into the earth, often choosing locations near hillsides or areas with natural wind barriers. They reinforced the walls with wooden frames, branches, and packed earth, creating a thick insulating barrier that trapped heat inside. Above ground, only a small entrance or roof opening remained, visible minimizing exposure to the elements. Inside, the temperature could be dramatically warmer than outside, sometimes rising to levels that allowed families to survive without freezing. The deeper they built, the more stable the temperature became, turning the frozen ground into a natural shield for these early humans. Warmth was not just comfort, it was life itself. Without it, food would freeze, bodies would weaken, and entire groups could perish in a single night. Yet through observation and innovation, they turned one of the harshest environments on Earth into a place they could endure. As snow piled high above them and icy winds howled across the land, the cavemen below remained hidden, protected within their underground world, where the Earth itself became their greatest ally. Inside these underground lodges, life was carefully organized around preservation of heat. Every detail of the structure served a purpose, and nothing was left to chance. At the center of the lodge, a small fire burned steadily, its warmth radiating outward and filling the enclosed space. But unlike open fires exposed to the wind, this fire was protected and controlled. The smoke did not choke the inhabitants, because the cavemen had designed simple ventilation systems, small openings in the roof that allowed smoke to escape, while keeping cold air from rushing in. The thick earthen walls absorbed the heat from a fire during the day and slowly released it throughout the night, creating a natural form of thermal storage. Animal hides were spread across the floor and walls, adding another layer of insulation while also providing comfort. These hides, taken from animals like mammoths, deer, and bison, were essential for survival, acting as both clothing and bedding. Families would sleep close together, sharing body heat to conserve warmth, a practice that further increased their chances of surviving the freezing nights. The entrance to the lodge was often designed as a narrow tunnel, sometimes angled downward before rising into the main chamber. This clever design prevented cold air from flowing directly inside, as heavier cold air would settle in the lower part of the tunnel rather than entering the living space. In many ways, these lodges function like modern insulated homes, using principles of physics long before humans understood them scientifically. The cavemen did not have thermometers or engineering tools, but they had something just as powerful: experience. They learned through trial and error, observing what worked and what did not, passing this knowledge down through generations. Over time, their shelters became more refined, more efficient, and more capable of withstanding extreme conditions. In a world where a single mistake could mean death, this knowledge was priceless. The Earth Lodge was not just a shelter. It was a masterpiece of survival, a testament to human ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. While the outside world froze into silence, the inside of these lodges remained alive with warmth, movement, and a quiet rhythm of human life, continuing against all odds. Food storage was another critical challenge in such extreme cold, and the Earth Lodge offered unique advantage in this area as well. Above ground, temperatures could fluctuate wildly, freezing food solid and making it difficult to consume. But underground, the more stable environment allowed cavemen to manage their resources more effectively. Meat from hunted animals could be stored in cooler sections of the lodge or in separate underground pits, where it remained preserved without becoming rock hard. This allowed families to access food more easily, ensuring they had a steady supply of nutrition throughout the long winter months. In addition to meat, early humans gathered roots, nuts, and dried plants, which were carefully stored to prevent spoilage. The lodge became not just a place of warmth, but a center of survival, where every resource was protected and used wisely. The design of these shelters also helped conserve energy. By living underground, cavemen reduced their exposure to the elements, meaning they needed fewer calories to maintain body heat. This was crucial, as hunting in extreme cold was dangerous and unpredictable. Every expedition carried risk, and success was never guaranteed. By minimizing heat loss and maximizing efficiency, the Earth Lodge reduced the need for constant hunting, giving these early humans a better chance of survival. Social bonds also played a vital role within these confined spaces. Families and small groups lived closely together, sharing not only warmth but also responsibilities. Some members would tend the fire, ensuring it never went out, while others prepared food or repaired tools and clothing. Storytelling became an important part of life, as it helped pass time and strengthen group cohesion. In the darkness of winter, with the outside world frozen and silent, these stories carried knowledge, history, and identity from one generation to the next. The lodge became more than just a shelter. It became a home, a place where life continued despite the harshness of the environment. Through cooperation and shared effort, these early humans transformed a simple underground structure into a thriving center of survival, proving that even in the most unforgiving conditions, human communities could adapt and endure. The construction of an Earth Lodge required careful planning, skill, and teamwork. It was not something a single individual could accomplish alone. Groups worked together to gather materials, dig into the frozen ground, and build the structural framework that would support the shelter. Wooden poles formed the skeleton of the lodge, arranged in a circular pattern, and angled inward to create a dome-like shape. This design was not only strong, but also efficient at distributing weight, allowing the structure to support layers of earth, snow, and debris placed on top for insulation. Once the frame was complete, branches, grass, and mud were layered over it, creating a thick barrier that trapped heat inside while keeping cold air out. Over time, snow would accumulate on top of the lodge, adding an additional layer of insulation. Ironically, the very element that made the outside world so deadly became part of the shelter's defense against cold. Inside, the space was carefully organized to maximize efficiency. Sleeping areas were often positioned along the walls, where the heat was more evenly distributed, while the central area remained open for the fire and daily activities. Tools and supplies were stored in designated spots, ensuring that everything was accessible. Even in low light, the process of building these lodges was passed down through generations, with each new structure benefiting from the knowledge of those who came before. Mistakes were remembered, improvements were shared, and techniques evolved over time. This collective knowledge allowed early humans to refine their shelters, making them more durable and more effective with each passing generation. The ability to construct such shelters was a key factor in human survival and expansion into colder regions of the world. Without this innovation, large parts of the Earth would have remained uninhabitable to early humans. The Earth Lodge was more than just a response to the cold. It was a turning point in human history, marking the moment when humans began to shape their environment in ways that ensured their survival. It demonstrated a level of foresight and cooperation that set humans apart from other species, laying the foundation for future advancements in architecture and engineering. As winter storms raged above and temperatures plummeted to unimaginable lows, the Earth Lodge stood as a silent guardian of life beneath the surface. Inside, the air remained warm enough to breathe comfortably, the fire flickered steadily, and the people within carried on with their daily lives. Children grew up hearing stories of past winters, learning the skills they would one day need to survive. Elders shared their wisdom, passing down knowledge that had been refined over countless generations. In this hidden world beneath the frozen ground, humanity endured not through brute force, but through intelligence, cooperation, and understanding of nature. The Earth Lodge was a perfect example of how early humans adapted to their environment, using the resources available to them in creative and effective ways. It showed that survival was not just about reacting to the world, but about shaping it to meet human needs. Even today, the principles behind these ancient shelters are still relevant. Modern insulation, underground construction, and energy efficient building designs all echo the same ideas discovered by cavemen thousands of years ago. The concept of using the earth as a natural barrier against extreme temperatures continues to influence architecture and engineering around the world. In a way, the legacy of the Earth Lodge lives on, reminding us that some of the most advanced ideas are rooted in the distant past. As the Ice Age slowly faded and climates began to change, humans carried this knowledge with them, adapting it to new environments and challenges. But the lesson remained the same. Survival depends on understanding the world around us and using that knowledge wisely. The story of how cavemen stayed warm at minus 30 degrees Celsius is not just a tale of endurance. It is a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. It reveals that even in the face of extreme hardship, humans have always found ways to survive, adapt, and thrive. Beneath the frozen surface of the ancient world, the Earth Lodge stood as a symbol of hope, proving that even in the coldest, harshest conditions, life would continue.